Number 10. House Sittin' for Sandy. If the episode Wormy got raped by To Save a Squirrel, this episode would be the illicit love child. I'll explain as we go along. Similar to Wormy, the plot revolves around Spongebob taking care of the tree dome while Sandy is out of town.
Okay, Spongebob, my tree dome is a highly technical facility and there are many facets to its operation.
Now, in a good episode like Wormy, they take only a minute to establish the situation. Here, it takes them half the damn episode!
This majestic structure is my kelp greenhouse. Its functions are completely automated, so all you have to do is check this thermometer right here and make sure the temperature is normal.
Not only does she have to spell out every responsibility she has for Spongebob, but directly after this, Spongebob repeats everything we just saw.
Normal. 2,692. 2,693.
So finally, midway through the episode, our conflict shows up.
I'd like to ask you to please immediately exit the tree dome.
Exit the tree dome?
So Patrick argues with him for a couple minutes over letting him stay at the tree dome, and after he finally convinces him...
Tell me again what it is you're gonna do.
Not touch anything.
What else?
Not do anything.
And... Patrick, how many times do we...
Guys, the episode's almost over. It's a bit late to get on with it now. But that's okay. Our brilliant writers have a quick, stupid way to wrap things up.
Sandy! How was the Inventors Convention?
I brought home something real handy. The experiment is a success!
Experiment!
That's right, boys. I wanted you to destroy my home all along, so I could test out this...
You know, it's funny. To Save a Squirrel had the same bogus ending. If I didn't know any better, I'd say our creative geniuses were recycling plots or something. You know, because they can't actually write. Number 9. Pineapple Fever. This episode is one of sheer stupidity. It's one of those episodes where SpongeBob and Patrick become exceedingly moronic. Their plans to go jellyfishing end up cancelled when they find out a huge storm is on the way.
Right now, we've got to get my house converted into a shelter capable of withstanding extreme weather.
Now, if this was just between SpongeBob and Patrick, they probably would have come up with a much better episode. But instead, they take the proverbial route and decide to make it into a Squidward torture porn.
Did you come to weather out the storm with us?
No!
Come on, Squidward, it'll be fun! We'll snuggle in here and pass the time by playing board games and playing tic-tac-toe and drinking hot cocoa and playing tic-tac...
You may have noticed this is a problem with a lot of bad episodes. Not only are the jokes they use bad, but some of them drag up for way too long. Additionally, the new writers seem to think that if they put Squidward at the ass of their jokes, that automatically makes them funny. And to make sure of that, they make SpongeBob and Patrick as intolerably dumb as possible. This episode is an example of that.
Oh, we'll be drinking...
That's better.
The storm strikes as soon as Squidward tries to go home. Now taken captive, Squidward ends up subject to their games of torture.
I win, see?
I'm not seeing anything there.
There's 3 in a row right here! It's the last piece of the puzzle! There's only one place it can go!
Oh! That's cheating.
With his arteries about to burst, Squidward borders himself in SpongeBob's room, leading to more unfunny shenanigans.
I bet you wish you had some of this, don't you? Snail food! Whack, whack, whack.
Oh! Nobody is to cross this boundary.
I'm the one who drew this line you're not supposed to cross.
If you are the one who drew it, let me see your identification.
One bad skit later. So they reenact SpongeBob BC for a few moments and the storm finally settles. Oh, Squidward, why must they pick on the one character on this show with any remaining likability? Number 8. House Fancy. Fun fact, this episode was inspired by the show House Hunters, because when you think childhood, who doesn't think of HGTV? It starts off with Squidward watching a show called House Fancy, only to find Squilliam is being featured on it. We got CG in this episode. We're so cool.
Is that what I think it is?
It sure is. It's a gilded doorknob.
May I? Oh, lovely.
So for the first few minutes, all we get is Squilliam showing off his house.
A 130-foot-long sculpture of my unibrow.
Your phone is ringing.
Oh. Hello?
Cut the visual gimmicks and get to the comedy.
It's for you.
Squidward calls up the show claiming he has a fancier house, leading him to wish the Cat in the Hat would drop by.
There's a stain on a rock. I'll use this chair to hide it. There we go. Now I'll...
Exactly how does SpongeBob get involved here?
You go away and never come back.
But Squidward, if I do that, then how am I gonna help you get your house ready for the big TV show?
How did you know about that?
I was spying on you.
Oh, this is gonna end well. Squidward decides to let SpongeBob help get his house ready, which proves to be a grave mistake. Not because he fucks up the one simple thing he was supposed to do, but because he causes this notorious scene.
We moving her too.
Hang on, I'm trying to get a grip on the thing. Now don't move it till I say... Ow! Okay, it's on my foot. SpongeBob, I told you not to move it till I said...
Is this supposed to be funny? For kids, no less? What sadistic creep thought that was a good idea? Oh, you've gotta be kidding me. You directed and co-wrote Band Geeks, for God's sake. Show some dignity!
I wouldn't go in there for a couple days. Please, please!
Too late.
Get me out of my misery!
Anyway, SpongeBob starts to vacuum the place, but it sucks up everything in sight, right up to the brink of exploding. To quote Stuart K. Riley,
"Oh, so original. That ain't been done before."
something else we've never seen before. Squidward thinks he's screwed, but it turns out his destroyed house is considered fancy. Would you believe the original ending was having Squidward's house hated? Wonder what changed their minds. Number 7. Dear Vikings. SpongeX, you know what I'm talking about. What we have here is a Viking-themed episode of SpongeBob that makes no mention of Leif Erikson. Golden opportunity lost. It begins with the Krusty Crew doing nothing of interest when SpongeBob asks in a rather annoying fashion,
What's a Viking?
and apparently no one's able to answer that question, or the subsequent 1,000 that SpongeBob has lined up. So to get the plot going, Squidward makes up an answer. And by answer, I mean a montage of an ancient people doing modern things. So original.
Grown Vikings are known to collect socks, which they display and trade at monthly sock trading conventions called Sockengarten.
Sockengarten?
Ach, ich hab Kopfschmerzen. When they aren't relying on Germanic accents for laughs, the jokes are about as pleasant as watching Leif and his buddies burn down your house. One such example comes up after SpongeBob sends the Vikings a letter.
A leather.
Why must you always come in here during story time?
Please, no, you don't understand.
Your Majesty, look, a letter.
How incredibly interesting.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
In response to the letter, some Vikings drop by the Krusty Krab and start to demonstrate their typical activities.
We Vikings like to appropriate.
What a fascinating culture.
New SpongeBob, in case you haven't noticed by now, your utter obliviousness is not funny! Once the Vikings Shanghai SpongeBob and Squidward, things only get less funny.
I guess we should introduce ourselves. This is Olaf. And this is Olaf. And this is Olaf. 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 So let me guess. Your name must be... That's right.
It's not Olaf, is it?
Gordon.
Gordon here tries to move the plot along, but SpongeBob's insatiable curiosity keeps it from going anywhere.
What do the Vikings like to do for fun?
Fun. Well...
What about the shield toss?
Oh, yeah.
No! Get away! After wasting a good chunk of the episode on SpongeBob's questions, Squidward ticks off Gordon and is set to be catapulted out to sea.
You can't do that!
You mean to question the will of the tribe?
If it means saving my best friend, then yes.
Like in House Sittin' for Sandy, the writers have failed to realize it's far too late to tell an actual story, so they instead shoehorn in a last-minute conflict.
This is the end! The end of the Vikings!
Get ready for one of the single worst endings in SpongeBob history.
Goes nothing! Now that's what I call a Viking-sized adventure.
I'm dead serious. It just cuts off right then and there. Dear new writers of SpongeBob, either learn how to write, or don't write at all! Number 6. The Clash of Triton. I don't have the actual footage of this one, so I'll make it quick. This was another quote-unquote special that had a lot of build-up but no actual substance. King Neptune decides to hold his birthday party at the Krusty Krab, but isn't happy about it because his apparent son, Triton, is unable to attend. Neptune had locked Triton up years ago for being kind to humans and now misses him. This of course leads to SpongeBob releasing Triton in order to make Neptune feel better. What helps make this episode so laughably bad is the so-called clash it's built around.
It's SpongeBob
I know how to use these!
versus Triton
Nothing can stop me!
in an epic battle.
Honestly guys, there was no battle to speak of. Triton crashes a car into the Krusty Krab and fires a laser at the city. That's about it. The actual battle is more like a battle of non-existent wit. It's anticlimactic, uncreative, and of course, triggered by a hopelessly flanderized character. By the way, it turns out the original title for this episode was Neptune's Party. Believe me when I say that title would have been much more fitting. Number 5. Choir Boys. Yet another episode featuring Squidward chasing a dream and featuring SpongeBob at his worst. Anyone noticing a trend here? This episode, in a nutshell, Squidward wants to join the town's men's choir, but SpongeBob keeps interfering.
Where are you going?
None of your business.
Can I come?
And no, you can't.
Can I come? Can I come? Can I come? Can I come? Can I come?
La 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 la. Yeah.
Perhaps Squidward didn't see me. This giant pothole ought to get his attention. What a lucky break! Now I have a captive audience.
This is why so many ex-fans hate SpongeBob nowadays. He's not the innocently misguided child we grew up with. He's instead a mind-numbing antagonist whose very appearance is unsettling. Ugh!
Stop! I hereby issue you this ticket for reckless rounding and failing to listen to my song.
This isn't the kind of character we want to root for. Rather, we just end up pitying Squidward and wishing this porous abomination would go die in a chasm. But our writers have other plans. As predictable as ever, SpongeBob out of nowhere gets the voice of the gods and shows Squidward up at the audition. Granted, Squidward had no business being there in the first place, but I'd rather have him in the spotlight than glorify this cubic bastard. Number 4. Shuffleboarding. Oh god, this episode is just teeming with idiocy that few others have matched. It opens up with SpongeBob and Patrick paying a typical visit to Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy.
Don't they look peaceful?
Yeah. Wake up!
They rip off the battle scene from the end of the original Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode, resulting in the two heroes being hospitalized. This proves problematic for the two seniors since they're expected to compete at a shuffleboarding competition.
If only there was someone to take our place.
I can do it, Mermaid Man!
All right, take these rings, and when you touch them together, you'll be instantly transformed into our duplicates.
We're ready!
I wouldn't mind them donning new Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy costumes, but could the artists have made them any more obvious? Oh, whatever, moving on.
It's gonna be an action-packed thrill ride of geriatric proportions! And the best part is, there is no way we can lose with these costumes on!
We already won the tournament.
What?
We already won the tournament.
Oh! You mean to tell me the initial plot just got scrapped? What the hell kind of cheap writing is this? You don't just change the plot right in the middle of an episode like that. What's even worse is the new plotline they picked.
If we're not gonna go around town pretending to be Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, then who is?
Oh no.
With no one patrolling the town, who's gonna stop those youngsters from loitering?
Yes, the real focus of this episode is SpongeBob and Patrick running around arresting everyone. For what, you ask? Well, watch.
You're chewing too loud!
Your shoe's untied!
Unbelievable. No one above the age of 3 would find this entertaining. And as if things couldn't get worse, SpongeBob and Patrick harass Man Ray while he's doing his laundry, resulting in a terrible fight scene.
Yeah! Eat fire sheets, Man Ray!
Filthy Shorts attack!
Whoa!
Close basket bombardment!
Could these guys get any less creative? So after locking up absolutely everyone, the two crimes against nature deliver the trophies and leave the real heroes at the mercy of the trouble they've caused. It's not like in the old days when they were punished appropriately and comically for their misdeeds. No, they get to assault old ladies and abduct children without consequence.
The old coop.
They have so many fans!
You will never live up to your predecessors. Number 3. Rodeo Days. I knew from the first time I saw this episode that it was one of the worst. To start, they actually have the audacity to try and mimic a Season 2 style opening.
Ah, the eternal expanse of the deep sea, teeming with fantastic creatures. Aha! Oh, that's a rock.
Yeah, if you're going to copy Season 2, you have to create some genuine laughs. Something this episode constantly fails to do.
The best starer I've ever stared at!
Oh, staring contest. I thought it was a blinking contest and I was losing.
You suck.
Anyway, SpongeBob finds a note addressed to Sandy and they go to deliver it. They waste some time trying to open Sandy's door when suddenly... Huh?
Trying a ninja sneak attack? Well, you're still no match for my squirrel foo!
What the hell was that? Ninja sneak attack? Is her suit running low on oxygen? The letter says the rodeo has come back to Texas and Sandy has to go and defend her championship title. That is, after she sings a god-awful song about it.
Critters that you gotta wrangle. Cowboy suits with purdy spangles.
As you can see, this song is mostly a list of Texan stereotypes. And when it's not doing that or just stating what happens at a rodeo, we get to hear the word rodeo over and over with some barely audible instrumentals.
Rodeo, 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 yippee-ki-yay.
You just ain't doing it right.
At the end of this trifle number, Sandy abruptly takes off. But because she had mentioned the rodeo clown, SpongeBob thinks she's going to get killed and decides to go after her.
We can't let Sandy go all alone!
From now until the climax, nothing happens. SpongeBob goes around town trying to find people to help him, but everyone refuses. Each of the resulting scenes is a joke that falls flat on its face. With no one left to go to, SpongeBob decides to force everyone to help him and abducts them in their sleep. You know what really bugs me about this episode? In the old show, if a major character got into a pickle, the other characters did what they could to help. Like when the town shaped up at the end of Band Geeks, or joined forces to find SpongeBob in pre-hibernation week. Here, when the other characters are told Sandy's in trouble, none of them give a damn. In fact, they pretend she doesn't even exist.
She's the squirrel. No, brown. Yep.
This isn't funny, it's just mean-spirited. On that happy note, the Bikini Bottomites end up at Sandy's rodeo, and SpongeBob fucks it up upon arrival.
Ahoy, Sandy!
Huh? Ow! Go, darn it!
In yet another anticlimax that rips off an older episode, SpongeBob gets attacked by the bullfrog, only to be saved 3 seconds later.
Next time, leave the rodeos to me.
Aw, nuts!
Alright, only 2 more to go. Number 2. Boating Buddies. Remember when I said in some episodes SpongeBob becomes a mind-numbing antagonist whose very appearance is unsettling? This episode is the epitome of that. I don't even know where to start. Actually, how about this? Whoever was in charge of SpongeBob's design deserves to be sacked immediately. And trust me when I say the writing is just as deplorable. In a sudden fit of stupidity, SpongeBob once again decides to get Squidward into trouble.
SpongeBob, I've been sitting here motionless for 45 minutes. What could you possibly have heard me doing?
Breathing.
It's locked.
While attempting to escape, Squidward runs a stop sign and gets pulled over by a policeman. As a result, Squidward gets sentenced to a day in hell.
Oh, Squidward!
Don't worry, Squidward, we feel the same way. Not only do they manage to make this episode incredibly annoying, but they decide to make it uncomfortably sketchy as well.
Do you mind? I'll teach you everything I know, and then we
won't be doing.
Anyway, Squidward tries to explain what happened while the cubic creeper stares him down. Ugh, if that's not a rape face, I don't know what is. Also, throughout this episode, the writers seem to equate funny with downright cruel.
I'll have to eat over here, just like back in grade school. You're ruining my...
Yeah, beat up Squidward for being rightfully pissed off. After a typical driving disaster scene and a random shrink ray incident, Squidward ends up in a full body cast right before the final exam. And, big surprise, he fails because of it.
You take it again next week.
What idiot came up with this episode? Springer, I have lost all faith in you. Number 1. Atlantis Squarepantis. Okay, a lot of you probably saw this coming, and I'm aware this was a TV movie. Regardless, this was so hellishly awful I had to put it on the list. Many fans remember this atrocity as being a major letdown, the biggest in SpongeBob history. It had a shit ton of build-up for a piss-poor payoff. Seriously, alongside the tons of commercials were Burger King toys, a video game spin-off, and even another fan-voted countdown. For those of you who never saw this movie, I envy you. The story surrounds SpongeBob and the gang as they discover the lost city of Atlantis. This idea no doubt had potential, so what made this special so terrible? Let's start with the most infamous reason.
Can finally come true. A bubble I long for, that so eludes.
Look at all this cash, hey! Look at all this money!
Look out, germs! The end is near! Your days are numbered!
It's a goddamn musical! This was a real slap in the face because none of the advertisements even remotely hinted at this being a musical. What made it worse was that all the songs were horrible.
With all their advanced science and my painfully enlarged mind, I bet we can figure out how to make wondrous things, like melons with edible rinds.
Is the plot at least interesting? Nope. Because every major event was made into a song, they left no time to do something of interest. On top of it all, this version of Atlantis should have stayed lost. As opposed to the classical mythological approach, they made Atlantis into a generic alien colony where all the Atlanteans look like androgynous Yucatanians. Not to mention their leader, instead of King Neptune, is this guy named Lord Royal Highness. This just reeks of creativity, doesn't it? The actual conflict doesn't come until the near end, when SpongeBob and Patrick encounter and destroy the world's oldest living bubble. Then there's a lame fight scene and they all leave Atlantis on one last crappy song number. Oh, and they also threw in Plankton as a phoned-in subplot. I didn't bother mentioning him because he has practically no impact on the story. They literally just throw him in during one of the songs.
Such a valiant desire.
Atlantis Squarepantis was a thorough and complete fuck-up, making it the worst SpongeBob episode of all time. Well, thanks for watching, guys. And for my YouTube poop fans out there, the next poop is on the way. Sincerely, MoBrosStudios.